to episode number 1 of the Draft Dive podcast. We're trying something new here. Myself, Jonah, and I am joined by my friend in a different state, but not as far as my cross-country friend that I sometimes record with. We're neighboring states here. Ken, how you doing?
Good. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too. We've both added some facial hair here during the quarantine. I kept mine a little trim, but you let yours. We're going to be talking about our top 5 quarterbacks for the draft here. So, Ken, if you don't mind, start off. Who is your number 5 quarterback?
Yeah, I think we'll get into that. I just want to precursor a little bit that I look at things a little different than a lot of other analysts or people out there, and some of my names might be different than what you're expecting. But number 5, I started off with Kellen Mond, and I've gotten a lot of slack about this the last few days because I left somebody off my list that a lot of people have up there in their top, 2 to 4. But when I watch the tape and I see Kellen, I think he has all the intangibles. He has pretty quick vision. He's athletic. He can create plays after the pocket breaks down, and he looks like a true leader on the field. That being said, when I look at Kellen Mond, I do believe it's a system fit for him to be a top 5 quarterback. He can't be drafted to a Bruce Arians type of offense and excel. But let's say if the 49ers were to grab him in the second round, I think at the end of the day, 5 years down the road, we could look back and say Kellen Mond was one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the draft.
Gotcha. So what, you said Bruce Arians, so he's not an air raid type quarterback. What do you think he is? West Coast system or?
Yeah, a little bit of the West Coast, quicker reads. He has arm strength, but he doesn't have the same arm strength as a guy like Trey Lance, who I left off my top 5. But the reason I kind of did that, for me, it was a toss-up here, but I don't have enough film on Lance to justify it. So I just wasn't sure with him not having very much film and not playing against top competition, where I've seen Kellen Mond go up against the SEC and NFL level talent, and I see him make good decisions and make plays that a lot of guys don't make. And I just feel like with the right tutelage, he has it. To me, I see a similar situation to what was going on with Dak Prescott, where I talked about Dak Prescott and was very high on him in the draft. However, not a lot of people were. And he just kind of fell into the right scenario. And sometimes that's all these young quarterbacks can ask for.
Yeah, so you think, a team like San Francisco best fit for him?
Yeah, I really think that him under Shanahan's tutelage and allowing the players around him to excel with him, the San Francisco system doesn't ask for a wide receiver to go out and take over a game. It gets him the ball quickly and allows him to make moves and lets the quarterback get the ball out of his hands quick, and it allows the running game to take care of the quarterback a lot. But at the same time, even Jimmy Garoppolo had a killer year under him 2 years ago.
Yeah. Killer year.
Well, till the playoffs, he had 30 touchdowns.
Really got shut down in those playoffs, though. But
yeah,
I'm a bit of a Garoppolo hater myself, so maybe I'm just looking to hate on Jimmy a little bit. And
it's
I'm
okay.
Sorry,
I'm in the same
Jimmy.
Club.
Okay.
But Kellen Mond could extend those plays that Jimmy can't. He can move in the pocket. He could step outside. He could find an Ayuk or a Debo, after the play broke down and make that offense take another step that Jimmy's never going to give it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, San Francisco actually has some playmakers. So, be interesting to see what they could do. So, sure. Kellen Mond didn't make my list. I went with Mac Jones at number 5.
Okay.
Mac Jones, of course, the Alabama quarterback. Very good at everything, not great at anything. If I were to kind of sum up Mac Jones, which not a bad thing. Still a top 5 quarterback in mind, but he's got decent size, good enough size. It's hard to say, but just kind of he is good at everything. He's not excellent at anything.
Okay.
but that's again not necessarily a bad thing for a quarterback. Believe it or not, he was actually PFF's top rated in their. He had the best season for PFF rankings this past year, so I like that. But my thoughts on really every position are I would rather go for a guy who could be excellent but might fail than a guy who's going to be your average run-of-the-mill guy. That's how my mind works. So I like that big potential. I don't know if Mac Jones really has that huge potential, but he definitely has the talent to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks selected.
Okay. You and I definitely defer a little bit. If I'm sitting in a GM chair, I'm not the guy that's usually wanting to hit the home run unless I'm drafting at 32 because I just won the Super Bowl and I can afford that.
You got to hit those home runs, Ken.
I would rather draft a starter every year for 10 years in a row in the first round that's going to give my team 10 years of consistency. And honestly, I'm one of those guys that's all about defense. So I'm okay with having a quarterback that's a game manager. And I don't think Mac Jones is a game manager. But I'm okay with that and building my team around him. I think that a lot of teams overvalue the quarterback, put too much money in the position, and it doesn't allow them to create the supporting cast they need to after a while. That being said, I have Mac a little higher on my list, and I'll dive into him in a minute. But I know from reading some of your previous articles that you tend to have a number you chase for your quarterbacks, and that's your completion percentage. And I believe that 62 or 63% is your floor that you're looking for.
Yeah, if you can, even if you can put up 60, I'd like to see it multiple years, but when you're a young quarterback, sometimes, if you're in the high 50s and you're starting as a freshman or even a sophomore, I can look past that if your completion percentage gives up. So
it gets better.
Yeah, as long as you're improving, going on the correct, correct trajectory.
I can get on board with that. With that being said, I mean, Mac Jones had over 70% completion percentage, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he was good, but going back, there are guys who are like, who is I always forget the West Virginia quarterback who went to Carolina. He's been there. Yeah. So like Will Grier does nothing but complete passes, but that arm strength. And I mean, I actually liked Will Grier a decent amount. I wasn't as high on him as some folks were. And I think I've kind of been proven right as not ranking him as like the 4th or 5th best quarterback in that class because it doesn't seem like he is, but he was a system QB. I said, put this guy in a West Coast offense where he has to make the quick read, the short throw, be accurate. Guy can be an NFL quarterback in a West Coast offense. He goes and is not drafted into a West Coast offense, and he's just not a good fit. I'm not 100%. Saying he's done, but there are certain quarterbacks who can pretty much play in any style if you have enough tools.
Yeah.
Will Grier wasn't one of those guys, but that doesn't make him a bad quarterback. It just makes him a West Coast offense quarterback, and he shouldn't be asked to run anything else, in my opinion. And that's where, you can get super high percentages, but they don't always translate to looking as good as other people who may complete less percentage.
I'm 100% on board with everything you said there. System fit is huge. I think a lot of prospects we see that get drafted in the NFL have way more ability than what we see them do in the NFL, but they get sent to the wrong system, the wrong coach, new GM, whatever it is, and they never get to do what they're good at. And I feel like I wish more scouts and more GMs would actually pay attention to that instead of just thinking physical ability will take you over the top. Yeah, because we see great players fail all the time.
It seems odd to me because I just, again, going back to say like Grier, I don't know how you could watch that guy and say, I'm going to try and put him in a different offense. I'm going to put him somewhere where he needs arm strength. Because look, arm's way better than mine, but in the NFL, he's real low on the arm strength ranking.
And I'm all aboard with what you're saying.
if you can make up for that with your accuracy, put him in a smart system where he's doing these 6 to 8 yard routes, maybe Will Grier could be a great quarterback in that. He could be.
So you kind of think that maybe Mac Jones' completion percentage is a product of that type of same thing?
I think there were a lot of shorter routes. I don't think his arm's bad at all. But I think there were a lot of shorter routes. I think he was helped by the system. And I think he was helped by some pretty excellent wide receiver play.
He definitely had some good receivers.
A bit, which he's still a top 5 quarterback, but obvious. I mean, the receiver talent there is so, that's going to help you. So that's just kind of why he's number 5.
Okay. Well, then I guess maybe we have you jump up to 4 this time, and then I'll follow. Who's number 4 for you?
So my number 4 is Trey Lance. Excuse me. Trey Lance, I know he's the home run pick, but I still have him at 4. So
yeah,
I get, man, he's raw, and he's got a lot of qualities you like, but is that really going to translate to the NFL? It's tough. And, there are 3 quarterbacks I'd rather take than Trey Lance, but I would take Trey over Mac Jones just because of the ceiling. I love the ceiling. I mean, it feels really lazy to compare him to Carson Wentz, but maybe I'm just lazy and I'll compare him to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz pre-injury, because Carson Wentz pre-injury was going to win the MVP that year. Hasn't seemed to have been able to bounce back from the injury. It sucks. I don't know. Now I am pretty down on Carson Wentz, which is too bad because he was an MVP quality quarterback. And unfortunately, sometimes injuries can just affect you. I mean, but, just rocket arm, great athleticism, very good accuracy, but 1 year of low-level competition. Yeah. So that's Trey Lance. But, that really did work out for Wentz. I mean, maybe even a guy like Josh Allen. Josh Allen was worse at completing passes coming out of college, and he was a guy I whiffed on. I thought that completion percentage would haunt him forever. He still misses some passes that he shouldn't, but he's clearly an elite quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, he also makes a lot of passes he probably shouldn't be able to. So I think at the end of the day, it's averaging out now.
That cannon, that cannon arm allows you to get away with some stuff, and so does the athleticism. And Lance is like that, very raw. If you get him, apparently, hey, good for Buffalo for developing Josh Allen into an absolute star, because I think there are some players with better abilities that came out of college who flamed out. So, all on Buffalo's staff, great job. That's kind of where I see Trey Lance, this guy who could develop into the Carson Wentz / Josh Allen type. But boy, you better have faith in your quarterback coach.
Yeah, and I think I agree with a lot of what you said. Not so much that I put him in my top 5, but like I said earlier, I like a little bit more safety. And a lot of people might think Kellen Mond's not safe, but to me, he is safer. But I think Trey Lance is definitely the biggest boomer bust quarterback in this class. If he hits on all the right notes, we could look back at it and say he's one of the best there is. But he also has the ability to have one of the lowest floors if he just doesn't pan out or doesn't work out well with the system. That being said, he does have the intangibles you talked about. He has pretty good vision, actually. He makes reads fairly quick. And people that are Trevor Lawrence fans might not want to hear it, but Lance probably has the strongest arm in the class. And he's built like a running back.
Right there. But
I watched his pro day film or his combine / pro day film, and he's putting some deep balls right in the breadbasket.
Yeah, but he had a great workout. I mean,
I can't take him in the top 10. I just can't. It's not who I am. It's not the way I build my teams. And I can't take Mond there either. But it scares me, and I know that Lance is going to go higher. And so that scares me because to me, that's the ability to miss on a pick. And then especially when a team misses on a quarterback, it sets them back for a few extra years. Unless you obviously want to take the Arizona route and spend 2 years in a row drafting top 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can do that. But yeah, Lance is definitely going to be an early pick.
Yeah.
So it's scary. You're not going to be, figure you could probably get Mond in the second round pretty easily. Is that what
that might be even too early, according to some people. But I just see maybe a few teams. If the Niners don't go out and get an heir apparent replacement to Jimmy, I could see the Niners being one of those teams that's turned on by the way he plays, by what he offers. But we'll see what happens then, and we'll talk about a little more after free agency as well. We'll see what's happening.
Yeah, true. Still some free agents left to land, but Trey Lance is, man, what a fun prospect. But yes, boomer bust, absolutely. But I like to take. I'm swinging for the fences, Ken. What can I say?
It's just that's what makes it great. We have two different ideas, so we're gonna get two different viewpoints, and maybe people appreciate one of us.
Yeah. Who's your number four?
I have Zack Wilson. And once again, I've talked to a few people, talked to a couple other guys, and they're really not very happy with me having them so low. And one thing I guess that we don't ever talk about, or when I'm reading articles, we don't talk about how scouts and analysts, or we're biased, we're humans, and I just don't like them. I don't like the guy, so it's hard for me to put at the top of my board. I look at what he's done on the field, and I see some amazing plays. I see his ability to make some throws that a lot of guys can't make. I've read a couple articles about how he was not voted team captain, but the team gave him the captain patch anyway. And that makes me question his leadership and his ability to be a good teammate and somebody that his team respects. And I mean, we've seen it around the league over the years where teams don't respect their quarterback or quarterback's not a leader. And it really makes the clubhouse struggle. And I question that. But last year, I kind of heard a little bit the same about Justin Herbert, and that was wrong. His team loves him. They follow him, and he was a great leader and did things not a lot of people did.
That's weird. I had not heard that about Herbert. So I get a little spoiled in my Oregon news.
Yeah, you're an Oregon boy.
I live in Oregon. My brother's also he's a alumni and a huge booster of Oregon. So I get a lot of the chat, and the chat was everyone loves Justin Herbert. To be honest, I just
heard he's real quiet and not a leader, but the NFL, the Chargers guys love him. They rave about him.
Yeah, possible in college, I don't know. I whiffed on Justin Herbert last year because watching those games at Oregon, he is a much better quarterback in the NFL than he ever was at Oregon. So not sure how that happened, but very happy because, again, I heard nothing but great things about him, and I felt so bad. I was real low on him because I watched those Oregon games. I don't know where this talent came from, but way to go, Justin.
Oh, my doorbell just rang, but I'm just going to ignore it. So, all right. Yeah, so I mean, for Wilson, for me, one of the big things that I don't like about the scenario with Zack Wilson is I keep hearing people already say, oh, he looks like Patrick Mahomes. And I absolutely hate that. As soon as somebody wants to compare somebody to the best quarterback in the game, I think anybody that made that comparison should, A, be slapped and lose their ability to talk about it. Because nobody is Patrick Mahomes besides Patrick Mahomes. I don't even want to say that he makes Patrick Mahomes-like plays because Patrick Mahomes makes plays that nobody else has ever made. And so I think that there's just a little bit more hype behind Wilson than there is actual talent in the end of the day. And I get scared of those players. He's another guy that really we only have 1 year of real evidence on. And even though he's at BYU, he played a full season. He still didn't play some of the same talent, the Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Fields, the Mac Jones played. And Fields and Lawrence showed it for a few years against that talent, not one. And I'll talk about Mac here in a few minutes a little more, but there's some things I love about him in that regard too. But for me, Wilson, I just feel like he's a little more hype. They're talking about him maybe going number 2 to the Jets. And then I listen to other scouts, and they talk about the fact that they don't even have him graded higher than they had Darnold coming out of college. And I wasn't high on Darnold coming out of college. So, I can't sit there and say he's the number 2 prospect in this draft by any means. So I just don't like him. 100%. Even when I see him talk, he just rubs me the wrong way.
Fair enough. You talk about that comparison. That's something that used to get me all the time back in gosh, we've gotten old and time has passed. But this was from, say, 08 to 12 to 15, in that kind of 7 to 8 year period. Every top running back was always, this guy's the next Adrian Peterson. Every single year, this guy's the next Adrian Peterson. It's Peterson's been dominant at the NFL for quite some time. Every guy every year can't be the next Adrian Peterson. It just doesn't work that way.
100%.
You can be a real good running back. You can be a great quarterback. But, yeah, Mahomes is on another level than anyone else. So, yeah, no one's the next Mahomes right now until you come into the league and dominate for a few years. Then we can start talking about that.
And nobody thought Brady was the next best thing when he came in the league 20 years ago. But you know
Certainly
what? Nobody makes the mistake of comparing anybody to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Until this year. This is the first time I've ever seen quarterbacks get a comparison of Tom Brady. And I guess, we've both talked about our number 4s a little bit now. I don't know if you want to talk more about Wilson, but Mac Jones is getting Brady comparisons from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I actually see the similarities.
You can see the similarities, just like I can see similarities when it comes to, say, Wilson and Mahomes. It's the escapability, the arm strength. That's Mahomes-esque. But,
yeah. And Mac Jones is the exact opposite. Stands in the pocket, has to move around like Brady.
Find a smart, accurate quarterback. Doesn't mean you're going to be Tom Brady.
I don't think he's the next Tom Brady. But when I see Mac Jones, I see a lot of similarities to players like Brady. He also reminds me a lot of a Dan Marino at a young age. He's not going to move around. He can make every throw. We don't realize it. He doesn't look that strong, but he makes the throws. And like you said earlier, he was definitely helped by his receivers. The guy had, bar none, the best receiving core we've probably ever seen in college. He had Jerry Jeudy last year for a few games, right? The year before last. And then this year he has Waddle. He has Devonta Smith. He has everybody. He even had Henry Ruggs for those few games. So at one point he had Jeudy, Ruggs, Waddle, and Smith.
Yeah, four
first round NFL wide receivers. But the one thing they're all saying, though, is when you ask those receivers, who would you rather have as a quarterback? It's unanimous. They all say Mac Jones, hands down, immediately. And that speaks to me, because if these guys are NFL talent wide receivers and they're saying this guy's my guy, then in my eyes, a lot of people are sleeping on Mac Jones, because we have to look at that and take that into consideration and look at the fact that he's the first quarterback that Alabama's ever actually given the right to call plays to.
Yeah.
And say he's probably a step up on who we watched play there before him if the coaching staff has more faith in his receivers, have more faith on him. And how high were we on Tua? So is Mac Jones better than Tua? They all seem to think so. And I think the Alabama system's full of a lot of really smart people. And I want to lean on their acknowledgement of that a little bit and say he's probably better than we're giving him credit for. And somebody might get him a little later. And have an heir apparent. If this guy falls to somebody like the Steelers in the 20s and he can spend 1 year behind Big Ben and go into a system that's built around a throwing quarterback and give him some protection and revamp that line, I think Tomlin and his team could work magic with a guy like this.
Yeah, no, I like Mac Jones. His physical attributes aren't as impressive as Tua's, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt.
Maybe he's a smarter player. I can't really speak to who's smarter than who. Don't know the guys. Don't want to make assumptions there. But, I figure he's a mid to late first round pick. So it's a little sleeping, but not too much sleeping. He's still going pretty well in the draft.
Yeah, I just see him mostly around that quarterback 5 range. And I'm thinking I just have him a little higher than that.
Yeah.
So What about your number 3?
My number 3 is Justin Fields.
Okay.
Yeah, OSU quarterback, of course. I mean, it was kind of tough for 3-2. I'll be honest. It was kind of a coin flip, really. So between 3-2, I decided to maybe go a little differently than a lot of people, but maybe not. I mean, so he's very accurate. He has a real strong arm. He's good at running. He played 2 full, I guess if you count this year as full, but 2, starting seasons of top level college ball. I mean, he's a top 5 pick. So I know he's 3 on my list, but he's also a top 5 overall pick. So, I mean, good size. What else can you say about Fields?
I'm not going to disagree with anything you're saying right now. I like toughness and grit, and he showed that this year when they played Clemson, and he took those hits and he beat them. He beat the who's who of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. I think we're both going to agree on who's number 1. I think everybody in the country agrees on who's number 1. I don't even know if we need to talk about number 1. But
talk about it for a minute.
But he stepped up when they faced each other head to head, took some hard hits, and led his team to an upset victory over the guy. Yep. And that shows me a lot. That shows me heart, shows me determination. It just shows me grit. The things that you really can't measure. You can't jump high and decide how much grit a guy has. You talk about him putting up numbers against extreme competition, top level. I really like that. I also like the fact, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this year, but they didn't play as many games this year at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But that means that he faced more adversity. They had games change in a small amount of time. They even had some opponents change a couple times where their game plans are going to change. They spend a week planning for somebody, the game's canceled, and then they're not sure if they're going to play the next week or who's going to play or what the schedule is going to be. And I know they didn't have the best year of their lives, but I mean, they made the college football playoffs and they played well. But he played through some adversity that I give him credit for. When the SEC ran full bore, it kind of didn't change much in the SEC. Zack Wilson played a full season unlike anybody else. So out of all these quarterbacks we're talking about, other than Trey Lance and the lower divisions, and they're playing now, but I don't think he's playing at all.
No, Trey isn't, but Idaho is.
Justin Fields is the only guy that really had to fight through that adversity and still produced. I will say, when you talk about how he makes all the throws, I don't see him throw down the middle as much as I'd like to see. But he was the number 2 guy coming out of high school. He's been the number 2 guy behind Trevor Lawrence in these drafts all the time. And then all of a sudden this year, a lot of people have him rated lower. And I think you're going to maybe have Wilson as your number 2 because I haven't heard you mention him yet. But before this season, Wilson was like the 62nd ranked quarterback in the country. And I struggle with guys that all of a sudden, I don't think he went from being the 60th best quarterback to being the 2nd best quarterback. And I don't think Fields went from being the 2nd best to the 4th best or whatnot. We just see other film and makes us question it. So I always have to ask myself, Jonah, are these guys falling or are other people passing them because they're getting more hype? And a lot of times I see guys like Justin Fields, for instance, he might not be the 2nd quarterback taken off the board. He might not even be the 3rd. But if you get him as the 4th, I mean, are you complaining? Because the reality is for 3 years up till today, nobody would have questioned if you took him at number 2.
Yeah, no, it's not. So really, as I said, 2 and 3 were really tough for me to say, like, this guy's better than the other. What it really came down to is my fear of Ohio State quarterbacks.
Yeah, I understand that.
Ohio State, for some reason, I don't know. You're just because, I mean, I think they're pretty equal, 2 and 3. I wouldn't be mad taking Justin Fields number 2 overall or 2nd quarterback off the board. He's excellent. He's a top 5 player, top 5 pick in this draft. So, yeah, but, I went a little riskier. I like to roll them bones.
All right. So you have Zack Wilson at 2, you said?
I do, yeah.
I have Justin Fields at 2. I think we've said everything we need to say about him. So what makes Zack Wilson for you your number 2? And then I guess one thing I want us both to talk about is what is the separation between number 1 and number 2 afterwards?
The separation between 1 and 2?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just say make sure we talk about
Oh,
that
okay.
afterwards. But let's talk about Zach and why you have him at 2 right now. Because I'm really, like I said, I just don't like him, and I'm not high on him. I almost didn't even include him in my top 5, but I thought that would be just, almost a suicidal tendency I'd be getting some hate mail.
Just the uncoachable arm. That arm strength, kind of like Trey Lance.
Okay.
I don't know who's got a stronger arm. I mean, you get Trevor Lawrence in there too, but man, beautiful arm strength, nice touch on the ball. He throws on the run really well.
Yes.
Wilson does, and I think that's extremely important at the next level to be able to move in the pocket and throw while you're moving and have it accurate. You know, yeah, he's got a good release, really quick release, which has aided a lot of quarterbacks in the past. And as we kind of talked about before, good escapability, good playmaking ability. When the line's crashing down on him, he can make those crazy Mahomes-esque plays and toss it. And then, with the arm strength to fall him back, toss it, 40 yards downfield on a rope. I get it. He's a one-year wonder at a smaller school. I mean, BYU's not North Dakota State small
No.
or
No.
Idaho small, say, but it's not SEC football. It's not.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, he played incredible this year. It was scary, some of his stats and some of the advanced stats on him. I mean, 80% adjusted completion percentage, throwing it 11 yards downfield on average. The guy, 1% turnover worthy play. I know why there's some questions about him, and I wouldn't blame a team for taking Fields over him, but he's got to be at worst the number 3 quarterback for me.
Okay. Yeah, and I get that. I mean, there's not a huge separation between Jones and Wilson, even for me. I just, like I said, there's just a little bit of biasy. Uh, when we talk about Zack Wilson and we see all the things he can do, do you look at him and do you have a fear that he might be overly aggressive with some of his falling back throws, things like that, when he starts playing NFL level talent? Do some of those throws turn into bad mistakes and extra turnovers, almost like a young Jameis Winston? Is that a
They could.
question?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the gunslinger mode, and where my mind always goes is Brett Favre. I guess I'm too old, and I should modernize a little bit more. But the gunslinger Brett Favre, who he'll make the game-winning play, and he might toss it up for a pick too. But
Yeah, definitely.
but overall, Brett Favre, one of the greatest of all time. He's that gunslinger. Now you have to adjust a bit to the NFL because a lot of those dumb throws are there's the athletes in the NFL are going to pick those off. But
Yeah.
I do like that 1% of his plays were turnover worthy. So you hope that he's already got a decent mind. And I mean, I guess maybe it would look, since he's compared to Mahomes, you kind of look at some Mahomes plays where
He
he's
gets
fallen
away with some stuff too.
by having just a rocket arm and being deadly accurate,
He's
being
amazing. Mahomes is
horizontal
amazing.
to the ground and chucking it in his receiver's face mask. That gets dropped. But,
Yeah.
I think, everyone needs to adjust a bit just because the athletic level of defense in the NFL is so different. That's got to be the biggest difference in going from college to the NFL is that your linebackers run a 4.5 40 now. And your three 250-pound guys who are coming after you all run 4.5s.
Yeah, you're getting less than 2 seconds usually to make your decisions. You're not standing in the pocket for 3 seconds then rolling out.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a drop there a little bit, but he does have some ability. I don't completely hate the guy. I think one of the reasons that I'm not as high on him as well is that when we look at all the mock drafts and we listen to all the experts talk right now, a lot of people say the Jets are taking Zack Wilson at 2. I'm not real, and I'm a huge fan of the Robert Saleh hire in New York. I think he's phenomenal, but he's not a quarterback guru. He is a defensive guru, and I just know that the Jets have done such a bad job for so long developing talent. I mean, Darnold did have a higher grade than Wilson by the Kuipers and the McShays of the world, and look what they did to him. And I know Adam Gase is gone, but do I really want to put a guy in a system where he goes to the Jets and he's got all this talent and he fails? And so I kind of think I might take that into consideration a little bit too, because I'm kind of guesstimating where I think some of these guys might go and how they're actually going to look in the NFL. And in the end of the day, that matters because the teams these guys end up on can make or break. I mean, we can look at the league right now and we look at Derek Carr for Oakland, and not everybody loves him. But the guy plays pretty well. But his brother, David Carr, was one of the best physical specimens we've ever seen at the quarterback position. Well, it's hard to play quarterback when you're lying horizontal for your whole career. And that could be anybody nowadays. And I worry about Zack Wilson going to the Jets and just being that next guy. Now, that being said, I do think that if Zack Wilson goes and plays somewhere like Atlanta, if they do take a quarterback and he sits on the bench for a year and then he gets to take over an Arthur Smith type system, just like similar to Ryan Tannehill with a strong running game, I mean, he might be lights out. But I'm also terrified to see him just getting broken as a New York Jet.
Yeah, well, the Jets are a dumpster fire. I mean,
yes, so that might take some. That might be some of my opinion for why I have him so low. I see him in Jets green, and I just don't see it going well. And so I'm not going to tie.
I could say that for almost anyone.
Yes. And honestly, the only guy that I like going to the Jets at number 2 is Justin Fields. And you and I, when we did our mock draft, we did it together, and I said I kind of like him going to the Jets, and the reason for it was because Robert Saleh is that hard-nosed defensive guy. He likes grit. He likes determination. He likes that. And Justin Fields has that, and I feel like he's just a Robert Saleh type person. And I just think he's the right guy. And so I think he might fit there a little bit. He might be a little more gritty, a little more determined, a little more able to live in that Jets environment than some of the softer people. And I don't know this for sure. I've never met them. But in the end of the day, I really think that might be the case.
Yeah. I think the Jets are best trying to fix one of their, 18 other holes before they really start looking at quarterback for those reasons. You should probably have an offensive line, some wide receivers, a running back, if you're going to try and,
Yeah, they have too many holes. I mean, we're going to get off the top 5 for a second, but I mean, if I'm the Jets, I'm trading back. I just don't see the answer. And I don't see a team that bad ever getting a quarterback and he plugs in and changes their roster very often. Usually the team that gets that quarterback that's the guy isn't drafting at number 1 or 2, or they had a really bad year for some other reason. They already had like when the Colts got Andrew Luck, they already had a pretty good roster, but Manning got hurt and they were horrible. So then Luck was able to just step into that role. But you watch teams like the Browns back in the day, year after year after year, taking top 5 quarterbacks. Well, they don't work when you don't have anything for them to play with.
Also, the Browns just sucked at drafting.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a few other teams we could throw on that list, and the Jets over the last decade are definitely probably the worst.
Yeah, they're horrible.
I mean, I love Quinnen Williams, but even taking Quinnen Williams in the top 5 in today's NFL, I'm not taking a defensive tackle that's not getting me sacks anymore. It's not the old NFL. I'm not looking for a run stuffer. And yeah, he's got 9.5 sacks over 2 years in the league. But I mean, is that worthy of a top 5 defensive tackle pick? Because there's a lot of other defensive tackles in this league. They're giving you 9 sacks over 2 years that aren't getting top 5 praise and money.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, I guess to the number 1 quarterback, no surprise, it sounds like, on either of our boards. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, of course.
I don't know how you could say anything else. I mean,
this guy could have been the number 1 pick since he started. It's possible he could have been the number 1 pick back in 8. Well, I guess it would have been the 18 or 19 draft, whatever. But I mean, this guy has been on top of college football and the draft boards for that long. When you're on top for that long, people do start to try and get a real nitpicky Which,
Yeah, they're trying to find anything they can. And the kid even just had to have shoulder surgery and decided to take his personal pro day early because they said, "Hey, can we come watch?" And he said, "Yeah, I don't care." You know how many players the last 5 or 6 years would have opted out of it and not done it just because they're afraid to hurt their draft status? But he's a baller. The kid wants to play. He's the leader. He's big. He's physical. He can throw. He can run. I'm growing my hair out long like he has it, and it's not because of him, but maybe it is. I mean, the kid's got all the intangibles. We literally hear the only comparisons for this kid are Andrew Luck and John Elway.
yeah, I was going
And
to
those
say,
are
he's the
can't miss
best,
people.
the best prospect since Andrew Luck. I mean,
Yeah, and as long as he wants to play the game and not retire in his 20s, you're hitting a home run here.
well, keep his head protected a little more than the Colts did.
Yeah, and that's the only concern I have for him too. Going to Jacksonville is Jacksonville good enough for him to step in and succeed? And you know what? I don't think Jacksonville's that bad of a team. I think there's been some issues there. They hung in every game last year. They played hard in every game they played, and they had Gardner Minshew and Doug Luton and Mike Glennon throwing the rock.
I do love Gardner Minshew and Jake.
I know you do. So this is just hands down for me, Trevor Lawrence. I think for you and everybody else, and I don't think this is one of the scenarios where he goes to a team and just gets beat up. Jacksonville has a lot of pieces in place. They have some good defensive pieces in Miles Jack, Henderson last year. They just signed Shaquille Griffin from Seattle. So their defense can stop things. And they have an undrafted rookie free agent last year named James Robinson, who ran for over 1,000 yards.
Did great.
And a running back like that to take some pressure off a young quarterback is going to go a long way. So I really like
have some decent receivers too.
Yeah. I mean, they have a little bit of everything. I'm not scared of him going there. If he went to the Jets, I'd even be worried about him being this physical talent that might falter.
I think Trevor Lawrence would be good enough to actually make a positive difference on the Jets.
Yeah. Just until he gets hit too many times.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, but no, I mean the guy's a star. There's let me see. I did watch some tape on him because I wanted to get a little nitpicky. I know he's the number one overall prospect, best prospect since Andrew Luck, but you gotta get a little nitpicky here and there. Work on those mid-range throws. His 10 to 15 yards in the tape I watched was a little off. I mean,
lacks a little touch maybe in your opinion.
Yeah, but I mean the guy's got everything. What are you gonna do?
No, not everybody's the next Chad Pennington. You know what I mean?
Hey, Pennington. Randy Moss made him look pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, the question that I ask if I'm looking at these right now is I'm saying if Trevor Lawrence, what's the difference between Trevor Lawrence and in this case, Fields or Wilson?
For me, it's quite a bit just because I have no doubt that Lawrence will be successful.
Okay.
He's can't miss, really.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of can't miss prospects. You can say, hey, this guy's my favorite quarterback this year. I think he's the best quarterback. Here's why. But are you really sure that you can always be wrong? Hey, I can always be wrong. I don't know how you're going to be wrong about Trevor Lawrence. Again, in the same last time I felt this way was like Luck. It's just duh. Of course it's this guy.
I'm on board.
Skill-wise, there's not a huge difference. And again, that probably sounds kind of weird since it's like, yes, because this guy's can't miss. And I really think he is can't miss. But really talent-wise, between him and Fields and even Wilson, there's not a ton. There is some, but there's not a lot of difference. I mean, after 1 or 2 years in the league, Robert Griffin was as good or better than Luck, right?
Well, he won Rookie of the Year, but it was that system. It was a little bit of what it was. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. Physically, they can all make the throws. They can all create space. But the difference for me is it's the intangibles. It's the stuff you can't measure. But Trevor Lawrence never gets shaken. He always has a calm demeanor. He's already shown us that he can lead comeback victories. He's already shown us that when the pressure's on him, he's willing to shoulder it. And he's been unwavering his entire career.
Yeah, 3 years of absolute elite
even high school
production.
And I mean, so we can't throw it out of the way, and it's that ability to just face adversity down and stand in the pocket and do what's right, and these other guys just don't quite have that in my eyes. I'm not saying a couple of them can't become that, but they're just not there yet. And yeah, Trevor Lawrence is hands down for me. He's worth 10 picks better than anybody else in the draft. I know they're gonna go, 1, 2, 5, whatever. We're going to see some quarterbacks. But the reality of it is if I don't need a quarterback, if every team in a perfect world already had a good quarterback and you're just drafting for the future, you're taking Trevor Lawrence 10 picks ahead of Fields or Wilson. I mean, it's what it would be, I think. And even this year on my big board, I don't think I have a quarterback. I think I have Lawrence and then a lot of position players before I have Fields and Wilson on there at all. There's a big space there.
Now, the interesting question is how much is this pick worth? Because it's worth a ton. Would you trade away for like 5 first-round draft picks?
Yeah, I chatted with you this recently, and if I'm Jacksonville, because I don't build around a quarterback, I'm calling the Jets and saying, do you want Trevor Lawrence? And Trevor Lawrence is such a home run that if the Jets are willing to give me their 4 first-rounders, and I only fall back 1 spot, that's a trade I'm taking. We're talking about what's the asking price for Deshaun Watson right now, and so really
2 or 3 first rounders.
Well, I've seen up to 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 young starters, or 3 firsts, a second, and a starter. I'm seeing people talk about Darnold, Quinnen Williams, 3 firsts and a second. That's unreal to me. And a lot of people have Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's rated higher than Watson was coming out of college.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, what if, you call up the Jets and you say, I'll trade you the number 1 pick for all 4 of your first the next 2 years, and you completely stack your team. I mean, at number 2, you could even turn around and trade back again, hypothetically. And what if you turn around at 2 and you trade to somebody that's chasing Zack Wilson? What if you trade back to 4 with the Falcons if they go a quarterback, or all the way back with the Panthers? And now you add a couple more picks. I mean, the Jets the Jaguars could legitimately have 5 first-rounders, 6 first-rounders in the next 2 years with a trade like that, and a couple extra seconds, maybe even a young player, plug a Quinnen Williams in the middle.
But would your fan base riot?
You know what? If you win, it doesn't matter. If it works, it didn't matter. And you could even drop back to 7 and take whoever's the best is left. And you still got a guy. And would Justin Fields be good in Urban Meyer's offense anyway? They already know each other. They already have a history. What is it? And it's not. We're not going to see that happen. But if I'm the GM, I'm fielding calls, because I could see myself adding 5 potential first-round future Pro Bowlers to my roster, and I can put a quarterback in there that can win with that talent. I think you look at the Niners 2 years ago, and I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, just like you said, but they were an average quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. I mean, the guy averaged less than 160 yards a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, he didn't do anything in the playoffs.
And Mullins could have thrown for 160 yards a game in the playoffs. He's willing to throw the ball down the field, and that's all they needed. And it goes back to even the old Ravens days with Ray Lewis and Trent Dilfer winning the Super Bowl, or Joe Flacco winning the Super Bowl. Joe Flacco and Trent Dilfer aren't game-changing superstar quarterbacks, but they're
not. But Flacco at least could chuck the ball.
Yeah, but it's still, they had the team around them. They weren't winning their games.
Did not have the ability to chuck the ball even if he wanted to. It just wasn't going to happen. Flacco had that cannon just in case. But
they're just other examples for me that the quarterback doesn't always win the Super Bowl. And if you build a great team around him, you don't need the best quarterback in the league.
So I agree, but when I tried to think of not good quarterbacks who've won a Super Bowl, could say maybe Flacco, Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, and then I don't know, we're going back 40 years when, it was run the football 35 times, sweep right.
I might get shot, but Tom Brady's the GOAT. The guy's the GOAT. He's the greatest quarterback ever. But statistically speaking, he's really not superior.
he's had some pretty impressive statistical seasons with one real wide receiver basically his entire career.
Yeah, but I
Number
mean, you go back
84 for like 3 years.
yeah, and I won fantasy draft year after year with those guys. But you go back and look at him, and I mean, he had a good year this year in Tampa Bay with that air raid offense. But most of the years when he was in New England and they were winning, he wasn't one of the top 3 touchdown guys. He had a couple years where he was
top
obviously
5, top
10
6,
maybe. I'd say top 10 on average.
He was 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns.
Yeah,
but
yeah, top 10
also
on average.
have to remember pedestrian wide receivers, really.
I get that, but another team that still has those same stats out of their quarterback they don't have the team around them isn't winning the Super Bowl. Their quarterback is what they built around, and that's the best stats they're getting, and they don't win it. He is a great teammate. He's a great leader. He takes pay cuts year after year, and he wins. But the statistical realization to me is that he's not usually the best quarterback in the league statistically.
Yeah.
And so really did the best quarterback that year win you, or was it the intangibles? Was little things, not making the turnovers, the check downs instead? So that's just another example to me that I don't think the best quarterback statistically was the guy who won the Super Bowls all those years. Even, I mean, yeah, it goes on and on. I think you don't want the worst quarterback. I'm not looking for quarterback number 32. But I'm saying I don't need the number 1, number 2, number 3 to win all the time. That 10 to 15 range, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, well, I'd say most teams are happy with 10 to 15. And unfortunately, there can only be that many guys because someone's going to be 16 to 32. There's going to be 16 of them. And
yeah,
it's figuring out who's going to be good, possibly great, or who's going to be average to not so good.
The difference for me, Lance, though, is the guys that have the teams who have those guys that are ranked 10 through 15, they thought they were getting number 1 through 5. They went up and they took those quarterbacks early on. Well, the reality is maybe you took the best tackle that year and the best wide receiver that year instead, and you settled for the guy that you thought was going to be 10 through 15, who really turned out to be 10 through 15, but you still gave him elite talent around him. Where other guys are reaching and they're taking these quarterbacks thinking they're going to be game changers, and they're not. Yeah. And you've lost out on the game changers to help your quarterback that would have been there anyway. We look at it, the team, you have to have a whole team. The quarterback's obviously the head of the horse here. But even Mahomes this year without 2 tackles in the Super Bowl, the guy ran for 500 yards just to try not to get sacked.
Yeah.
He broke a Super Bowl record for yards ran. And they were all behind the line of scrimmage.
And hey, if his receivers could have caught a few more balls, they would have been in that game, which, think about that. Under duress the entire game. He hit some guys in the hands that just didn't feel like catching it for some reason.
100%. But when you look at the film and say, well, what if he didn't have to run on all those throws? What if they had tackles? And I know their guys would
win by 20.
I know their guys are injured, and that's a little different, but they just gave that guy $500 million. And don't get me wrong, he's going to sell tickets, fill seats for decades. He's going to make them their money. And he's phenomenal to watch. He's going to put up numbers. But we're already probably going to start seeing some issues with the salary cap. I mean, with the cap being down this year, they just cut both tackles.
This is a weird year. I would say that my expectation would be a huge jump in cap next year.
And I don't think we'll ever talk about cap problems again with the new TV deals going into place.
Yeah, so survive for a year, I guess.
Yeah. But here's my problem. If I'm a GM and I just gave $500 million to my quarterback, I can't survive this year if he gets hurt. So the only thing I'm not willing to put out there this season is Pat Mahomes' health if I'm the Chiefs owner. And by getting rid of your bookends, that's scary to me. Plus, they turned around and gave $80 million to a guard.
A great guard.
But he's not going to stop JPP and Shaq. He's going to stop, he'll stop Sue.
Yeah.
And so that's
maybe
a problem.
He figures he can have that average 16 to 32 tackle, put him next to, top 5 guard.
Yeah,
we'll balance each other out.
I want to ask you one last question about the quarterbacks, though, and we'll kind of cut off today, I think. Who's one guy that nobody's talking about at the quarterback position that you're really big on later on in the draft? And I think I know the answer from your sleepers recently.
Yeah, I wanted to look at a few more guys before I really attached my horse to a cart, because there's no Tyree Jackson yet that I've seen this year. The greatest quarterback ever, who is a developmental tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's idiotic. But
I love your connections.
Guy's the best. I love him. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. I wrote about KJ Osborne because I really like the arm strength.
Costello, right?
Oh,
KJ Costello.
Yeah, what did I say?
Yeah. Osborne, wow. You're a Vikings fan. He's in your brain.
Yeah. He is. KJ Costello, arm strength, athleticism, 2 years starting for Stanford, a top Pac-12 program, a grad transfer to Mississippi State, where he absolutely just beat the piss out of LSU in his first game there, set SEC records his first game there, and then he kind of fell apart. But we're talking about a guy who's more than likely, sixth round is earliest. I think most likely is undrafted. Maybe someone takes a flyer on him in the seventh, but just with those tools, some of that big wins, the leadership, why not take a flyer on the guy in the seventh round who, you're going to draft someone who you're going to cut or try and get to the practice squad anyways, 9 out of 10 times.
We all need a good backup quarterback. Everybody needs a backup quarterback that can actually move the ball.
And that Cannon, he's had some injury concerns, but yeah, I don't know. For a seventh round prospect to undrafted prospect, I'm a big fan. He's undervalued.
I see some ability there. His name makes me want to draft him just so the mafia doesn't come after me. The mob, that Costello name, it just makes me think about
Elvis
tough
Costello.
guys. I just think of tough guys. But I like him. There's nobody this year late that really just really jumps off the screen at me. Where usually there's one guy that I scream at, and the quarterbacks is like, dude, I hope somebody grabs this guy in the fourth round just because, and he gets a shot. And I'm always praying for that next fourth, fifth, sixth round, that Tom Brady guy that becomes somebody. But this year there really isn't. But I guess I kind of have Kellen Mond up there a little higher than a lot of people do. And actually, as we're talking, I saw that Chris Sims put Kellen Mond up in his top 5. Ooh. And Chris Sims is usually pretty on point with these, so I'm thinking I might be onto something.
You might be. But I don't know about that Chris Sims.
Kellen Mond would probably be the guy that I'd talk about. But after that, there's 2 guys that I just asked questions about. Kyle Trask out of Florida. He had an amazing season and nobody talked about him. He had a Joe Burrow-esque type of year. And he's not Joe Burrow.
He is not.
But he did some things that we have to give credit to. And if he can do that, I can't say that he can't play. No, and then another guy – oh, go ahead.
And I would actually, I was going to say, I like Trask a lot more now that he seems to be projected in that mid to late second round. I hate him as a first round quarterback, but if you're going mid to late second round, now maybe you're getting some value there. You're getting a guy who's not expected to start. You didn't draft him knowing he is this guy.
He's the perfect pick for the Falcons, in my opinion. Don't go quarterback in the first round. You still have Matt Ryan. You're not going to trade him. He's $44 million a year against the cap. You still have Julio. You have Calvin Ridley. You have some pieces. Atlanta could add a player in the first.
Too.
Yeah, they could add a player in the first and the second, and maybe get Trask at the top of the third round and let him sit behind Ryan. And that's the kind of quarterback Trask is. He's a pocket passer. He's accurate.
Quarterback. It's just everyone had him as QB3, QB4. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, no. But he's a pocket passer. He's accurate. He's a baby Matt Ryan, kind of just that type of quarterback. But I guess that wouldn't fit Arthur Smith's system going forward. But either way, I like him going in those rounds as well. The other guy that I'm intrigued to see what happens with him would be Newman, the old Georgia quarterback that went to Wake Forest, or vice versa. His physical ability is through the roof, but it just never got put together. And I've read about him, I've watched him in this film, and he's another guy that if somebody takes him and develops him, we might be talking about him in the future. But I'm not taking him saying he's the guy. He's legitimately a late round draft pick that you're just throwing on your practice squad for a year and seeing what happens with him.
Yeah, I'll tell you a guy who will not get any love, who I need to watch him the rest of the year because he is 2 games into this season. So I need to watch a little more tape on him before I plant my flag. But that's Mike Beaudry, Idaho quarterback. I'm always watching my Vandals. I'm always high on my Vandals, but he actually, good arm, good movement in the pocket, really good. Their offensive line looks terrible. And he
that's
is
because they're the Idaho Vandals, Jonah.
Yeah, but
nothing good has ever come out of that university.
Mike Iupati, one of the best guards in the NFL for a decade.
I was more referring to other graduates.
Oh, me. Well, sure. I'll defend their football program. But no, I want to see this guy's got a pretty good arm strength, good touch, and is moving. He's dodging a lot of people back there. So I'd like to see whatever the 6 to 8 games. He's not going to get drafted, I don't think, unless he averages 500 yards a game, which he won't. But it's an interesting skill set that he's got nice size, a good arm, and good movement in the pocket. I'd like to, you never know.
Well, I guess I'll have to hitch up my potato wagon and ride down and take a look at him down there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's letting all the fans in the Kibbe Dome, but you get your Pluto TV and you can get the Idaho Vandals football games. So I'm on board, and they need some new announcers. Sorry, guys, who's ever on that channel, you guys suck. So,
all right, bud. Well, I think we'll end with the quarterbacks today, and tomorrow let's pick up with the defensive position and jump into it a little bit more. I'm really excited to see this year's draft. It's going to be different than anything we've seen.
Yeah,
and we might find out that we're all really, really good or all really, really bad this year because there's less to go off of than there's ever been.
Yeah, it's a weird year. So we'll see. All right.
Yep.
Good to get that first one in the bag, and you have a good one, Kenny.
Yes, sir.